Yellow. Is yours on?
Mine is on.
Okay.
Mine sounds way closer though.
Oh, really? Well, I did like lean back then.
I'll put it like this.
Okay.
And now we are on video as well.
Woohoo! Hi.
Yes, we are. Okay.
Amazing.
Izzy, I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
And by the way, for my usual 3 listeners, this is going to be in English. So forgive me if I mess up. But
I apologize.
No,
I
no,
can't speak Spanish in order to fit your usual.
No.
market.
I mean, I come to your country. I should be speaking English.
This is right.
This is, yeah, we're, okay, off to a good start. Izzy, so basically my main purpose for this podcast is for people to get to know you.
Okay.
Because you're a fantastic person.
Oh, thank you.
And I just have 3 questions. And for an hour and a half. So we're going to be here answering those 3 questions. The first one is, where do you come from?
Where do I come from?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am from... Oh, that's such a good question. Well, I was born in Massachusetts, which is the East Coast. It's Beverly, Georgetown, Ipswichy, very like small Bostonian town, very brick and mortar. That's where my parents were living, but they moved like right afterwards. So we used to visit there a lot when I was younger, so I felt very like from Massachusetts, but I think I've kind of lost that. But I do think it's why I'm like so intense, because if I was just, because then we moved to Wisconsin, and that's where I grew up my whole life. And Wisconsin is like, we call it Midwest content, but you're just vibing like all the time. There's like no intensity really. Everybody's just kind of like, you do the same thing every day, lackadaisical. So my intensity is definitely East Coast. But yeah, I grew up in Wisconsin. I was there most of my life until I started moving to the West Coast. It's crazy. I don't even know. I wish I had pictures. Where do I come from? I live on like a lake in a very small town.
I've seen one picture of that. It is a beautiful lake.
It's a gorgeous lake, isn't it?
Beautiful.
It's amazing. Fun fact: it is the lake that Jack in Titanic. It's the city that he's from, allegedly, and it's the lake that he's from. So Lake Wissota. That was so Midwest, but like that's where it's from. And then it's but when they made the movie, the lake didn't exist, like in the timeline. So, like, he's like, I'm from this lake, but, like, when the Titanic sank, it was a man-made lake. So the lake, like, doesn't exist.
They didn't do their research.
No, they didn't do their research, but that's the lake that I'm from. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. I feel very lucky to have grown up there. I don't know. It's cold. I was not, like, a super small town. I dated a guy that was, like, a super small town. I'm, like, 14,000, so, like, appropriately small.
And do you feel like your family is small as well, or do you have a large family in a small town? How's the contrast on that?
That's a really good question. So my immediate family, the Polnazics.
Sorry, by the way, you don't have to say they're really good questions if they're not. I sometimes just speak stupid shit
all the time. You could actually, it was so funny. Yesterday I met some new people in a line, and we were talking, and they kept asking me questions. I go, that's a really good question. And then I would answer, and they were like, I just like asked what you had for breakfast. And I was like, yeah, but it's a really good question.
Because it was a really good breakfast.
Because it was a really good breakfast.
Yeah.
Not really, I had waffles. But
But you love waffles.
I do love waffles. I love Kodiak protein waffles. They are my best friend. Fun fact.
Maybe we can get them to sponsor this.
Yeah, we should.
That'd be nice.
They're wicked expensive, so it would be nice to be. But I try to eat high protein a lot, so it's like an easy high protein when I don't feel like making breakfast. But my family...
I like that.
Yeah,
that segue.
That segue. My immediate family is really tight. I have an older brother and younger sister, and then parents. And then my dad, I'm his second marriage, so there's like 4 other people, his other kids. They all live in Wisconsin too, but I don't really see them. And then my dad's side, they're in Wisconsin, but they're in this other town called Thorpe. What?
Thorpe.
Sounds
like Thor.
I know, right?
Is it not?
It's spelled the same, but with a P at the end. And there's a restaurant called the Torpedo. Oh. It's very Polish. Like, it's like a little town. And everybody knows everybody. My Aunt Carol knows, like, everybody in that town. It's crazy. And so, but we, like, kind of... My dad's side's there. But my mom's side, I mean, they're all in Massachusetts. And I have, like... my lineage is really big, and I actually know a lot of my lineage. So like both sides of my family came from Ellis Island, and my dad's side is very Polish, and I have never done like Ancestry in Me, because if I want, like, my family has all the documentation, like we have everything lined out. I know exactly what I am and who I am. And then my mom's side, I have a lot of Scottish relatives, and we've all stayed really close. So like during the pandemic, we used to do like Zoom calls once a week, because my great aunt was stuck, like, because they really locked down and she couldn't go anywhere. So we would do cahoots. Do you know what Kahoot is?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would do cahoots of like British trivia.
The trivia game.
The trivia game, yeah. And we would play, we each got to pick one. So like we always picked like Marvel, but then they would pick like Roald Dahl. And
what is that?
He's an author. He did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And
oh, I'm illiterate, so I wouldn't know. But thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Do you like Wes Anderson?
Yes.
So all of his adaptions, because Fantastic Mr. Fox, the Henry Sugar, and the he's doing another one, I thought. All the shorts he did on Netflix, they're all Roald Dahl stories.
Interesting.
They're the same font of weird. So if you like Wes Anderson, you'll really like Roald Dahl.
Cool.
But yeah, that was, so like I feel very, I'm like very, I don't even know if I'm very English at soul, but like I do, when my grandparents moved in with us during COVID, that was probably like the most like I felt British, like, or English. My family's English, but they live in Scotland. So like I grew up, like there was just lots of tea and like the royal family.
You mean the kind you spill, or the kind that you take at 5 p.m.? All of it. You
like take and spill.
Oh, okay.
Have I told you about Princess Diana? Did I tell you about
Oh, is that a conspiracy theory?
No.
We got a section on that, so we can...
Really?
No.
Oh.
But we can invent it.
I was ready.
By the way, this is the first episode of season 2, so we can invent sections. Anything. We can do anything.
That's crazy. Well, so my grandparents moved in with us during COVID and then stayed for a while afterwards. At one point, I'm pretty sure this might have been a different time they were visiting. That's just important. I've just hung out a lot with my grandparents. So there was one day that I came home from work or school or something, and it was dinner time, and on every table there was like a dollar store tiara was like set on every single placemat. And I was like, what are we doing? And it was like, sit down, and then we all had to dress up too. So like I had to go upstairs and put on a dress and like come back down to eat dinner at like my little Midwestern house. And it was because it was the anniversary of Princess Diana's death.
Jesus.
So we had
not her birthday.
No, the day she died. So we all had to wear the tiaras and go around the table and talk about how impactful she was in our lives. But I wasn't alive when I don't remember Princess Diana dying. So I
don't remember when she died.
Yeah, no, before I was born, I think. Probably before you were born too.
Yeah, because you were born in 2010.
2002.
That's okay.
2010. I would be a child. No, 2002. But it's so crazy. Anyway, like weird English stuff. We like would wake up at 3 a.m. to go watch the royal family. I feel very connected to my heritage.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because most of Americans, I feel they're either they want to know about the royal family or not, but they're not related. But you have like family from there, so you should. Mm-hmm. You're in the right watching those types of shows.
I think we are.
It's just not gossip; it's actual history for you.
Yeah. No, it's like total ancestry. I mean, I grew up by the Mall of America, like close, like an hour and a half.
Cool.
And they have this top floor is always like different like galleries, and one year it was about Princess Diana, and my grandmother, we all went and took her for her birthday. We were there for 4 hours
in the Mall of America.
That's short, isn't it? In the Princess Diana, only in her thing. It's a long time. So I feel very connected to that woman. I feel like her and we've like trauma bonded at that point. But
very cool.
I care a lot. I think it's different. I think as a white person, or like a white American, a lot of white Americans, I would say, aren't connected with their heritage in the same way. Like I feel like sometimes they treat it like a zodiac. Like they're like, I'm a Cancer, which means blah 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 blah, but like they're like, I'm German, which means blah 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 blah. Like I have a high intolerance, but it's different than like actually having culture and heritage. I think people really want that. I think we're really isolated and individualistic right now. But I feel like it's harder. If you grow up as a white American, you obviously don't feel as connected to the genetics and the heritage and everything because you're an American, which is different than like being, like even though your genetics is from a certain place, like you're still an American. The culture of America is just so huge.
It is.
It's hard to stay connected to anything else.
To anything else. Yeah, 'cause the country's so large.
Yeah.
So big. It's the size of Europe.
Yeah. No, you're much more like, I feel like you're an American, but you're more like your state. Like your state is
Your country.
your country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a Wisconsinite, which is funny because I don't think I really fit in there, but like in my soul. I met a girl from Michigan yesterday, and we bonded like so intensely. It was
in the
crazy.
same line or
In the same
place?
line. No,
Cool.
she was the girl that I was talking to. Then we got lunch afterwards, and she wants to write a show about lake culture, and we were just talking about growing up on lakes.
Oh, that's so nice.
I know.
I feel like you're the perfect target for that because you're a writer.
Yeah.
And then you live by a lake.
It was the right conversation. It's true.
Very cool.
It was great.
Yeah, so let's. I mean, we can go into this in the next question.
Okay.
But I feel like where do you come from? It's like Minnesota.
Minnesota, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
I am not. I'm not a Minnesotan. There's like a whole. I'm not from Minnesota.
Okay.
You can't say that.
I will.
It's like illegal. Like the line between Minnesota and Wisconsin, she's harsh. I know that's like a genuine thing. Like that is.
There's rivalry.
There's rivalry. Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
Because the Packers and the Vikings.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm
I
not
should
going
know
to
that.
mansplain sports to you.
Please do.
Please.
Please do.
So Brett Favre, do you know who Brett Favre was?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Legendary
he was
quarterback.
legendary, was on the Packers.
And then he
went to the Vikings.
And retired as Viking.
Yeah.
Now I
so
remember.
that, like, did you ever have, like, dress-up days in school?
No.
Okay, so we had dress-up days in school.
You dressed up as Brett Favre?
No, but it would be, like, you have to wear sports day. And everybody, and we had a Packer day. Like, the Packers. If you grow up in Wisconsin, like, I don't even believe in sports anywhere else because the Packers is like a lifeline. Like it is everything, and sports is everything. And like you wear Packer jerseys to church, like that is and that's not a joke. And like cheeseheads are at Target, and like it is your life. So like there was always one kid in school who like wore a Viking jersey, and they were like annexed. Like, I have pictures in, like, old yearbooks, and we would pretend to, like, hit kids who were Packer fans. Or there would always be a teacher who, like, moved from Minnesota to Wisconsin, and then they would wear a Viking jersey. It was, like, a whole thing. And then, because I was very connected to being born in Massachusetts, I always wear Patriots garb, which I know that's, like, it's, like, a whole thing. So that was even worse. Not even worse. It's just different. There's just, the Vikings just, like, it's not good. Like, you just don't. So, yeah, I would never. It'd be like if you should tell Jonathan, be like, you're from Wisconsin, right? And you should see what he does.
I will have him here and I will tell him that.
You should. Oh, yeah, you should. Everybody roll back. And we'll have to cut the two clips together because I bet you he'll be weird about it.
Okay, I will. But then, like, I don't want to say small town, but you are from a small town.
Relatively, yeah.
In a lake. I feel like that's very beautiful, especially in the north of America.
Yeah. No, it's gorgeous.
I would imagine like the sounds of the place are quiet and calm, as opposed to here in LA, which is just a mess.
Yeah,
like fire trucks and ambulances all over.
Helicopters are the loudest thing ever.
Yeah,
I've never even processed a helicopter being
there's
so
like
loud.
10 a minute here.
Yeah,
it's insane.
It's ridiculous.
Well, you are also a sound person.
This is true.
Are you a sound designer, sound recorder, everything all at once?
I started with mixing or editing, I guess, because I have a fantasy fiction podcast, and so I guess produced is the right word. I created it and then produced it, so I like commissioned a composer and found voice actors, and so I wasn't necessarily recording anything at that point.
Yes.
But then I needed recordings of sound anyway, so I picked up the habit. So I do with my cell phone, as you were talking about lake sounds, I'm sure I have a voice memo of a lake sound somewhere in there. Like, I do go around and record things to keep for later. Usually birds. I
That's
love
very nice.
birds. Like, and I feel like they're not always good when you find them online because I do a lot of just like free Foley download.
Yep.
But that's good. But yeah, no, I do a lot more mixing and designing. But I've been doing more recording lately. But I don't have any equipment, so I just use my phone. And my phone's getting old. So it's just...
Well, the thing about microphones is they don't change. Like,
Yeah.
if you have a microphone from the first iPhone, it's probably the same microphone as the latest. So that's good, I would say.
It's all right.
But do you feel there's a change between, like, your relation to your environment via sound from Wisconsin to here in LA?
I wear headphones more here,
That's
for
interesting.
sure. I was very anti-headphone when I first came here because I didn't want to get raped. So I was like, I'm not going to wear headphones ever.
It's like a public safety.
Yeah,
if
it's like
you're isolated.
Hands down. Today, I was walking to the coffee shop next to me, and I was at like a crosswalk, and I was waiting, and this guy was leaning against the crosswalk. So I was going to push the button, but then he didn't. And this very specific one, if you don't push the button, it doesn't do a walk thing.
Oh.
Like, it will just stay red. Just stupid.
It
so
is.
you have to push the button. So I was like, okay, whatever. And I was waiting, and then I was just going to cross jaywalk. Then I started walking, and then I didn't understand. I didn't realize he was like a transient person. And so he like starts screaming at me and like running. And I was like, this is a lot. But I didn't wear headphones. So if I had worn headphones, I probably would not have processed the information that was happening. But then also earlier today on the walk here, I was walking past Crypto, and there was a group of guys, and they came and were like, they're just being weird. And I couldn't really tell if they were weird at me or weird at each other, but like they were like walking toward it. They were like looking. There's no way that they weren't looking at me, and they definitely were talking. But I was wearing AirPods, so I pretended to be on a phone call, and then they like walked away. So there's like, it's very interesting, like the dynamic. But that's not even sound. The sound thing is that back home, I just never needed to drown anything out. Like, it's gorgeous. And so I just didn't, like, I commuted like 50 minutes and I would not put on a radio. Like, I just liked the sound of outside. But here it's like, I'll wear headphones in the house because I'm just not, it's loud.
I would also imagine you have a beautiful singing voice.
Aww.
And when you are living with other people, you cannot just break into song
That is so
at midnight.
true.
And I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
I forgot my headphones in my backpack, so I just went and had breakfast without them, which is like the first time I've been outside downtown LA without headphones. So I found myself singing because I needed, I was mumbling words and like just because I needed to drown out the noise.
Yeah, I talk to myself all the time.
And I would imagine if you live with somebody with like 4 other people, you cannot break into song at 7 a.m. That must be really sad.
It is really sad. I will say, I didn't really do that at home anyway.
Either? Oh, okay.
Just because I do have siblings, and I specifically, like, my siblings are amazing, and I love you. But because I love them.
I don't know you, but you sound like a cool person.
They're pretty great. They're both awesome. But they're pretty good at setting boundaries, and so they will be like, shut up. And I'll be like,
Cool.
Okay. So it wasn't like...
That's very helpful.
You know what? No, it's super helpful. But also there's just a lot more time to be alone. Like, we all had different lives. So there were times, like, if I go home for the summer, that I am the only one home, especially because we have dogs. So someone has to be at home with the dogs.
How many dogs?
2.
Oh. What are their names? Do I know them?
I don't know. Do you?
Oh.
I don't talk a lot about them.
No, you don't.
Isn't that funny? I'm not a big animal person, so I don't talk about my animals, but I do love them. Like, they are the best.
Cool.
So Winston, he's a golden doodle, and he's like 3 now, and he's awesome. He looks more like, he's like a curly golden retriever, and he's the sweetest thing, and I love him. And then there's Joe, and she is a black lab. And she's awesome too. So
you went a little bit quiet there. Is everything okay with Joe?
Joe, it's actually such a long, sad story. Do you want the long, sad story? Is that like...
Give me the short, sadder story.
There was a first dog named Augie who got hit by a car.
Oh, that is
Yes, it is very sad. And
I'm sorry.
it's okay. I mean, it was a long time ago. We had a couple dogs in my childhood, and then COVID happened. Yeah, and then COVID happened. And then... the last dog I had before them was Quote. And he was a Chesador retriever, massive, like this massive dog. And at that time, our church, like, we did a lot of things at our house, and my house is just not like it's a big house, but it's not that big. It's big in comparison to Los Angeles. So like it's like a nice size.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everything's big here. But it's like your dogs can only be on one floor, and we have a nice backyard, but we are next to a highway, so it's not like they can really go run around. And anyway, we had to get rid of Quote because he was too big, and he like knocked over an old person. And so he now lives on a farm, a real farm, not like your dog's on a farm. I've seen pictures.
Is it real? Okay.
No, he's bigger than the calves.
Are they AI generated pictures of
Maybe they were like 8 years ago.
Okay.
But it kind of just like ruined the dog taste. And we all got busy, so we didn't have dogs for a while. Then we all like, COVID happened. My brother and I were graduated. We're all in school. But my sister was like stuck at home being remote. And they went back to school, and then they went back to being remote. And my mom said, if you go back to being remote, we'll get you a dog. So they went back to remote. They got a dog. So they get Augie, and Augie was awesome. Augie is like he was awesome. He was this brown lab and the cutest thing. And he had a ringworm, so I got my sister ringworm, and then my sister broke her foot, and so we all had to take care of the dog. So we were up first, like none of us are touching the dog. Like we all kind of had like trauma from like having to get rid of Quote. But then my brother really stepped in and helped with the dog, and then there was this big snowstorm, and we had to shovel the driveway, and they were like, let the dog out, and then Augie was just so small and couldn't see and ran out and like got hit. No. It was really
Jesus.
I don't want to go into the whole thing, but it was like I like saw it happen, so it was really sad. And then it was super traumatizing, especially for my brother, because my brother had to go like grab the dog, and like it was really bad. And then had to tell my sister because she was at school. It was crazy.
And it was hers?
It was her dog. She wasn't there. No, it was like, I don't see some of my family members cry. And like, I saw one family member cry so hard. Like, it was like really hard. So then we were all like, our family, like depressed. Like, it was awful. It was even crazy. Like, we had a random person call, and she found my mom's number off of her website. And was like, I was in the car behind the car that hit you, and there was like no way to see that. Like, it was so on accident, and like it was a crazy freak thing. She was like, I'm so sorry that your dog died. So then my brother, because he was the one that let it happen, which is not true, but like he was the one outside with the dog and felt very responsible, was like not well at all. So they ended up getting, we ended up getting Winston, and to like, it was like a therapy dog for losing Augie. And Winston was awesome, but it was very much for my brother, and like my sister still lost like her pet. And so we ended up telling Augie's parents that we lost the dog, and they were having another set, and they were like, would you want Augie's sister? And that's Joe. So Joe is like Augie's sister. Is actually Augie's sister, and like
it's still part of the family.
Still part of the family. So then we got her, and we got her really. So she was like that big. She was super. And I went and I got to help pick her out. She's named after Jo March because she's a little spunky girl. And I took her to like Shakespeare in the Park, and everybody thought she was a cat, but she's like. So I love them both, but it was like such a hard. Pets are really weird. It's actually probably that specific story is why. Unless my kids want pets or my spouse really wants pets, I don't do it. It just hurts too much. Like I don't.
Do you feel like you get too attached?
Yeah. The cost risk analysis here is just really hard. Like they're a lot of work. They don't talk to you. They do hold space for you.
They can't sing.
Jesus. Yeah.
If they could, I mean.
No, literally. And they're such special things that I would argue have such small time. Because my dog so we had Quote for 3 years. Lily died of kidney failures when she was 4. And then Dakota was the dog before that, and he died at 17. So, like, I had one dog that, like, died when I was young, right when I switched schools. I feel like a dog has, like, left my life every time I have a very big transition. So I think I just have trauma. But I don't really mess with having animals. Like, I'm not going to do it unless my spouse really wants one. And I don't hate animals, but they definitely are just... It's just really hard to lose them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Sorry, that
totally.
was like so sad, but...
No, you're totally fine. I mean, do you feel like you attach those eras of your life and transitions to the dogs, or they happen to happen at the same time?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I do that with boyfriends too. Like my boyfriends that I've had are all like very transitionary periods for me, and the dogs that I've had are all very transitioning periods. It's just really funny. They're the same. Boys and dogs.
I would say dogs are better.
I probably no, and I actually would argue, and this is probably like the wrong take, but like cost risk analysis, I've just reached. I'm like, my heart is too big, and she bleeds consistently. Like it's like an ER in here. So in order to keep my sanity, and it sounds like awful, but like I just don't. I don't do it anymore. Like I don't really date, and I don't really get dogs, and like that probably is like hyper independence. Like I can therapize myself all day wrong, but I just really think that
all day wrong is a phrase I haven't heard. No, and that's a really good one.
But maybe.
But all day wrong. That's a really good
trademark
phrase. Trademark it. That's yours.
Yeah, but I just think that it's, for me, I'm at this point in my life where like I'm young enough to like hustle, and there's other things that will bring me joy. And like at one point I'll get married and have a dog, but like right now it's just not. It's like so much ache. And
you have
pain.
so much going on.
I have so much going on.
You have Technicolor Dreamboat going on.
I do. I have Technicolor Dreamboat going on.
You wrote a musical and you filmed it.
And we filmed it.
Well, when I say you, I mean the team.
I was actually just in the line yesterday. I went to an open call for Wicked. That is the line. So in the line yesterday for the Wicked thing, I was talking to these people, and I was talking about Technicolor, and I realized, I will never be an actor or never like be a...
How about that EGOT?
You're right. No, I will be, but I'm not. I will be a writer and pivot. I will not be an actor and pivot. It's too hard. Props to every actor out there. I will never do that again. Stood in line for like 3 hours to sing for 10 seconds and then leave. And it was just such a long process that like I was exhausted. I hadn't eaten for hours. And so I didn't do a great job. Like I felt like it low key set you up for failure. And like virtual self-tapes, thank God for those, like genuinely, because like that whole process, I was like, these poor, and they're all freaking out. Like there's just the frazzled energy of being an actor. I met a couple who were like very chill, but of course they're freaking out because they're trying to get their livelihood, and a lot of them everybody went on strike for a reason. Like it's brutal out here, and I just think. They always say, like, you need to want it that bad. And in that moment, I was like, I don't want acting that bad. Like, I want to be an artist, but acting is, like, a fun pivot for me. It is not my everything. It was crazy. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, you want it, or you, like, they're like, you know, you have to want it that bad, or you have to love the process. And I didn't even have, like, a bad time in the line, but I could not do that every day. Do you know what I mean? It was just not the way that I would want to spend my time. I'd rather love the process of like writing a script and like banging my head against a wall because I can't figure out what they're saying. Like that is more rewarding for me than sitting in a line during an eclipse. Yeah. The eclipse was great though.
Oh, you were in line for the eclipse?
But everybody passed out like the glasses.
That's very nice.
It was really cute.
Yeah, and not all lines are going to have an eclipse, so
no, exactly.
It only gets worse from that.
Yeah, exactly. No, there was like this other thing to distract. And the people, I was in like a really good bunch. I got dinner with one of them. Like, it was really fun.
Interesting.
I know. She was the Michigan girl.
Okay, you're going to have to remind me of the Michigan girl.
She like writing the thing about the lake.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was it was as good as it could be, but I will never, not never. I would not.
Never in this week.
Yeah,
maybe
never
next
in
week.
This week. It was crazy.
And that was the line for Wicked?
The Wicked thing, yeah.
The Wicked thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're just an open call. I was number 290 something, and I was probably like a quarter of the line.
Jeez.
It was crazy.
That is
crazy.
And
that's when I was like, I don't want musical theater that badly either.
And also, and if you want to act, you can write it, direct it, and then act in it.
That was the point I was going to say, which is that I was
talking
have
it easy
about...
You're a triple, quadruple threat.
Well, right. I'm so talented and incredible. I am. And with Technicolor, so I co-created a short form content musical that is going to be on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and probably Snap. We need to figure that out. And then YouTube. And it's like a swipeable web series. Genius, because we're genius. And I'm very excited about it. And when I was talking about it, like they were all excited and they were like, oh my gosh, I would love to do this. And then they were talking about how in LA, like you can like hang out in someone's apartment and kind of get things done, but then you might get like a noise complaint because we filmed in Phoenix. And this chick was asking like, is it better to film in Phoenix or be places that are not LA, but to get creative things done, or is it better to be in LA? And I was talking about, because, I mean, our crew was probably like 35 people, but we probably have like 60 people attached because we had a ton. We have like an ensemble. We had a whole dance crew and like
choreographers.
Yeah, and the post-production, and no one's getting paid. And they were all like, how did you do that? And I was like, I don't.
The power of friendship.
No. Literally
the power of friendship.
People want to like make things and want direction, and Emily's a very good director.
Yeah, and when you're doing it guerrilla style, like I don't know how you pronounce it,
but yeah,
guerrilla style. You have to do some things not for free. I mean, you get lunch and you get maybe an Uber bag.
No, real.
But you're taken care of on set.
Yes.
It's not like you're going there out in the sun in a casting call for 3 hours.
Yes.
No lunch.
Exactly. No, I was like, and they were very nice once you got into the building, but that took 3 hours versus with Technicolor. And Technicolor was hard. Technicolor was one of the hardest things I've ever done. The filming was crazy. I was also talking about that.
Problems every day.
Problems every day. And
a lot of tea.
That's how you know it's going to be good. Yeah, we're not
spilling
tea on this.
No.
But there was a lot of tea. I genuinely, it was so hard. And it was...
Let's do this. When you watch Technicolor Dreamboat, figure it out who was involved in the tea. That's going to be... You figure it out. We want to see your...
That's crazy. Send in your conspiracy theories. I cannot wait.
We should put up an email where they can send conspiracy theories on T on Technicolor. But no, we're staying away from... We're staying away from...
Oh my gosh. If you do... have you seen people after shows that... Okay, I mean, I'm going to spill this tea because it's so inconsequential. You see how people on television shows, like, they're like, who's still following who after it's over?
On social media?
Yeah.
Totally.
So the lead actor, Cale Klein, isn't following me on the internet.
First of all, how dare you?
How dare you, right? No, and I thought we were friends. And so I, like a petty whore that I am, unfollowed him. So if anybody is like, why is the co-creator not following Cale? It's spite. I bet you he just like unfollowed me and then like forgot to follow me back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't want to be creepy, you know?
But he's
Maybe
following
he didn't want
Emily.
crawl up in your DMs or something.
This is true.
Yeah, he wanted to be... No, I'm not defending him.
No, follow me. It was just so random.
Kyle, if you have something to say for yourself, come in this podcast.
Yeah, Kale, fly in here. And the other thing is that he will like my comments on Technicolor posts. So he knows my account exists, or he tagged me in a post for Technicolor.
Too much.
But he doesn't follow me.
That's doing too much. Come on. Come on, buddy.
But if anybody is like, oh my gosh, why is Kale and Izzy not following each other? It's just petty. Like, I don't know why. And now I can't ask, because if I ask, then I know. You know what I mean? Now it's just too much.
Emily, hi. You're watching this.
Emily.
Ask the leading actor.
That's what so he was supposed to be at the rap. He didn't go to the rap party. Because if he went to the rap party, I was going to be like, Emily, can you just ask? Like, but he didn't go.
Again. These actors.
I know.
Too complicated.
Actors are too complicated. It's true.
They have to go through a lot of lines, a lot of waiting.
Well, I will say, after yesterday, I have more respect for acting, because like that was crazy. But he doesn't do theater, I don't think, not anymore. Or he did community theater in Phoenix, not the same thing.
Would you write a play?
Would I write a play? We have talked about if Technicolor would be adapted, how it would work as a musical.
That's very nice.
In Broadway, because we think the hair would be like a lighting effect, like he'd wear a white wig and then you would have the lights.
Oh, totally. You could even have like the wig and the LED strip lights.
Yeah, that's what people
like one or two. Just
that's the thought.
I am the king of bad ideas. I have a bunch of those.
We talked about that for his hair. It's about a guy with hair that changes colors with his feelings. So when he's sad, blue, angry, red. So we did talk about, there was one guy specifically he was like, you should do LED strips. We did test it. It doesn't
work.
But potentially
with Broadway
far away,
money. Broadway money could make it work.
And the distance. But when you have to do close-ups, like you can just see
that
there's lights.
But if it's
but it's like tiny. Yeah, then it would work. Very exciting. So we have talked about that. Emily and I have talked about, we are both EGOT. The goal is EGOT, and so we have talked about writing a show together, but we don't really know. I mean, I guess Technicolor.
That is the perfect segue for this question number 2.
Okay.
Yeah, question number 2, and it's, who are you?
Who am I?
Yes.
Your mom. I'm kidding.
I'm gonna refrain from my follow-up joke because
it was good.
It was good. It was, but I cannot just answer back. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to contain myself. I have to be a professional.
We gotta
have to be
respect.
But I would say future EGOT winner. Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony.
I
would say.
I think so. We're on the way. The plan with Technicolor is easy Emmy, and then easy Grammy.
Totally.
Potentially.
I mean, the songs are really good.
The songs are really good. Exactly. So we gotta position. That's one of my plans for this weekend with Emily is to talk about Emily comes in tomorrow.
You know what? I happened to receive the ticket yesterday in One Iota. I'm going to the Deadline television contenders for the Emmys.
That's cool.
Let me see if we can get you a ticket. Because of the shows that are going to premiere on 2024 that are going to participate, they have to do their networking. They have to get on the Deadline publications and lists. So there's going to be that party April something.
Oh my gosh. Be fun.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally.
Okay. Easy.
I'll let you know.
That's why this is why you make friends in LA is all networking.
It is networking.
Networking. The girl I met in Michigan, her friend moved from here to Austin and has the volume in Austin, Texas.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so she knew what a volume was because she's like, yeah, my friend has one. I was like, your friend has a volume?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
It's just her guest room.
Yeah, exactly.
At her house. The volume.
The volume.
For those who don't know, the volume is just LED panels all around, ceiling, floor, all walls. Mandalorian.
That's what everybody. When I was trying to explain to people the bus thing that we filmed, and I was like, it's like the Mandalorian, but a bus. And they were like, oh!
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian, but sad girl.
But sad girl. Sad girl on a train. EGOT winner is the goal, and probably very accessible, in my opinion. I feel very destined for greatness, so I am just, here for the ride, I guess. Not really. I work really hard. That's not a fair assumption. But I do think that there's no world in which I'm not hustling. This is just how she works.
How you like to do your thing.
That's how I was built,
And well, that's a perfect segue for question number 3, which is what do you do?
What do I
do?
And
what do you like to do?
I'd say I would say I'm a creator. I know that's a dumb word. I feel like artist sounds
God
more,
is a creator, so that is not a dumb word.
And that's my theory on if we're getting spiritual, is
totally.
that I do think that God created us as mini creators to continue to cultivate the earth. So I do think our calling as people is to continue to create.
Can you say that again? That's beautiful.
That's beautiful?
Yeah.
God created us as mini creators to continuously cultivate the earth.
Yeah.
I believe. And then the whole free will doctrine, right? Where he was if you have good and evil, you can do this. We're still creating. We're just creating not of his image. So nukes, that was not a thing that, you know what I mean? That's not in God's image. But some of these other beautiful things like pizza, that would be in God's image. You know what I mean? So I feel the free will thing was just this split of what we get to create. But I do think innovation is just a very natural spiritual event that we do. So I am a creator. I'm a writer, in my soul. That is what I do. When you would leave, that's what I was. I'm 10 pages away from my rom-com being done. So I've been trying to beat that out because that's.
Fuck yeah.
And that'll be my 3rd or 4th feature. I can't remember. I think it might be my 4th.
That's impressive.
Thank you.
I cannot tell you how much we struggle on writing a short film screenplay back in my days in film school.
Yeah.
We would come up you have a year to write 15 pages and nobody could.
Are hard.
Yeah,
Shorts
but then
are really hard.
I would hear, because I never attempted that, I would hear of people that could not graduate school because they were 2 years in writing their own feature length, and you have 4 under your
I do have 4.
That's pretty cool.
I wrote, my first one was in in lockdown. I read Save the Cat, and I wrote a script called Salutatorian, which was about this girl who wanted to be valedictorian, and then this new girl comes, and then she gets booted to Salutatorian, which is the second highest, and then you have to she's fighting her way back. Just to talk about the education system. I was pretty mad. I was really talented in high school, but I think I wasn't I was blaming the education system a lot, and I do think there are some quarrels with the American education system, but I also think, yeah, right, I wasn't very confident in myself. I knew I was very talented, but I didn't feel comfortable, like, taking up space. So I feel like I self-sabotaged a lot, and I wanted to be, like, selfless and let other people have space.
When you say taking up space, do you mean in the classroom, on, like...
on time. Stage, in classrooms, like when I did a lot of choral stuff, I feel like I had a lot of bad auditions and I was very confused why, but I do think I just like didn't want to be the center of attention, and so I was like nervous in this weird self-aware way. I also had my first boyfriend, I would argue, was very high profile. Like, he was very well known in our school, and so I didn't want to take a lot of space from him. Like, there were a lot of things where like I was just sacrificing a lot, and then when you're in quarantine, like, you don't really have anybody, and so you can kind of figure out like who you are. And then I would argue I went through several periods of like isolation, and that is when I did my best writing and working and figuring out.
Do you remember if somebody told you, or when did you learn that you didn't want to take up space, or how is that a thing that...
That's a very good question. I do think it was because of growing up in the church. I just think that you grow up. Did you ever read or watch the Divergent movies?
I think I did.
Did you read them? Okay, so there's a faction called abnegation.
Yeah.
They're like the selfless. That is my upbringing. Like, we were taught, like, plain Jane clothes and, like, don't look at yourself in the mirror, and, like, you are, like, not... Like, you serve God. And, like, you serve people, and we are here to serve. So, like, my parents have a nonprofit, and we were volunteering all the weekends. I slept on, like, floors, and, like, people would use our spare bedroom if they were recovering addicts, and, like, we were just always giving. I would argue my parents, who I love dearly and are the most talented people and wonderful people I know, but I think watching that kind of lifestyle growing up, it kind of taught me about, like, martyrism, like being a martyr. I think my parents, like, made themselves martyrs, and I do think they kind of lost a bit of who they are in order to, like, appease other people and to serve people. And I think the line between, like, serving and being kind and also people pleasing and, like, not taking care of yourself is really thin. And I've struggled a lot with, like, how do I maintain my soul with boundaries, but also, like, still remain kind? Because I am a very joyful and I would argue very kind person, but I think that I used to, like, just everything I did was for other people. Like, I never did anything for me, and I was so content that way. But it's exhausting, and then you, like, don't even know who you are if you're just, like, shoveling out your soul for people. Boundaries are crazy. Everybody should get boundaries, but it's also really hard to maintain them. And then sometimes I set down really strong boundaries, and then people are like, whoa, and then I'm like, oh, am I being crazy, or, like, is this not the time?
Yeah, it is hard to find that line. Do you remember the first time that you could do something for yourself and then you went for it? Like, I mean, because people talk about when, for example, they're on a diet, they cannot have, like, donuts, sweets, candy, and whenever they do, they feel guilty. But it could mean progress if you took that sweet, that donut, and then it was like a reward because you not spoil yourself, but you made yourself happy in that moment, and that you did it for yourself, not for the plan, for the diet, for others. Do you remember, like, the first time that you took?
The first time moving out the first time was probably that, and it's kind of hard because that wasn't a good move for me. Redact that sentence. I had a challenging time living in LA the first time, but I needed to move out. I had this breakup with this guy. We only dated for like 2 months. And I realized through that breakup that I was, like, wildly codependent. And I needed a partner. Like, I needed this person to be in my life. I'm a very loving person. I think I feel very worthy when I date people. And then it's like, if I don't have a person to give all my attention to, like, what am I doing? And then I just needed to get out. So then I moved to LA, and I worked on a movie at GCU, and then I moved to LA. And I worked with my mom, so it wasn't like I was really out of the house, but I was, like, making my own friends and doing my own thing.
Andrea's an actress? Just for people that don't know, your mom?
My mom, she's a production designer. So I was on her art team that.
But an actress as well.
She also is an actress. She acted in Technicolor. So
That's beautiful.
yes.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. No, she's amazing. She co-wrote this movie with her sister, and then she produced that movie, and then she was the production designer in that movie. And that was the movie I worked on in GCU. And that was when I started making some like lifelong friends that I still keep in contact with. And then I moved to LA, and I remember, and that's when I went to therapy, and I was realizing like I was apolnasic, like my last name, like through and through. And it's actually why my last name is not on a lot of social media or on resumes anymore. Not that I'm so proud of my family and to be Polish and all those things, but I was so much of like apolnasic, and I served at Fellowship Church, and I served at Touch Twice, and like this was the person I was. Like I really needed to figure out, if there was no one there, like who was I? And then I did it wrong at that point, and I developed like a binge eating habit. I just started eating food all the time. I also had some medical stuff, so like I lost taste. I got sick with COVID. It's a very long story, but I lost a lot of weight, and then I gained a lot of weight, and then I like had the body thing, and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I look like? And then when I moved to Phoenix after that, and I was like so alone, like all the people I didn't know ended up moving to LA, and I knew nobody. I would go to like 3 movies a day. That was like my treat. And it wasn't like, and I didn't use Letterboxd. That was the other, I like went to the movies and I didn't use Letterboxd.
How could you? That's that's an achievement.
But it wasn't like I was seeing, because I would argue like I wasn't performing, but like I was just like giving information and giving all these things to everybody. And so instead, I was like watching movies for me and like going to movies for me and like seeing all these things and like containing information. I also went to the gym for me, and like that was so, and it wasn't about losing weight, it's about gaining strength, which is a very different way to think about the gym.
Completely.
And like I started like making meals that I liked, and like living alone, like so alone. Hey, it's devastating because you're just bored. Like I was bored on my mind. I didn't have Wi-Fi, so I like read a lot.
Oh my God.
That was the year I didn't have Wi-Fi. So like it was really, I didn't have a lot of money either. So like when I went to the movies, I'm like scavenging tips from the week, and then I'm using that to go to the movies, and then like sneaking into other movies afterwards to not have to buy another ticket. Like that was the energy, but I didn't have anything else to do. And then what solidified it was that I worked on the short film, and then I like almost dated a guy, and then he
Sorry, I do have to say, like, watching films as a thing you use to spend your time instead of like drugs or instead of like scamming people. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful thing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing that you could just, what am I gonna do with my life? What's gonna be my addiction? Yeah, it's just film.
No, it's gorgeous, and you learn so much, and you learn a lot from the bad ones, and some and some, and then you learn like. I mean, I think you go through phases as a creator where you're either consuming or you're creating. Like, I feel like you have to be you have to take in stuff in order to put out stuff. Like, if you don't learn anything, like, what do you have to talk about? And I think art is, like, asking questions about things. So, with film, I really feel like the more that I, like, worked on film and the more I did things, like, did you see Violent Night? The Santa Claus horror movie with...
No.
He, like, kills a lot of people.
No, I normally don't do horror.
I don't do horror. It's like a thriller. I don't know. But it was this movie. It was with the guy from Stranger Things. I forget the guy, like the one who dated Winona Ryder. Anyway, that movie, not a great movie. But the production design, I would die to be on that team. That production design was crazy. Like, because his background was that he was Russian, so they had like all this Russian stuff in the back, and you wouldn't really notice because it doesn't make sense, but like it does make sense. Like, and that's the thing, if I didn't go to 1,000 movies, you wouldn't notice. Or like, did you see Damsel on Netflix?
No, not yet.
It's very bad editing. It's shot pretty well. The story's okay, but the editing is really bad, and it like broke the movie for me. But you don't really notice that if you're not like taking in a lot of content. Like I was like, why do I not like this? Like, why am I having a bad time? And it was the editing. So, but you don't know specifically until you start practicing that. And then like I edit a lot for Technicolor, which is the social media account, so that has made me a better editor. And then I watch things and I'm like, oh, that was like really bad. Yeah
I do. One of the things I love about filmmaking is the editing, because
Yeah.
that's the only thing that film does. You cannot edit a painting. Not really. You just paint over it. You cannot edit a sculpture. You sculpt it and that's done.
Yeah.
You cannot edit photographs. Like, there's no sequence. There's no time element to it. And in film, that's very specific. Editing specific to film.
Yeah.
And that's an art I really enjoy.
I'm like a pacing whole. Like if the pacing's bad, I'm gone.
Yeah.
You gotta keep me, and that's editing.
That's very. I feel like, and I say this with all with a lot of love, but that's like a very American thing.
Yeah.
Because you have the recipes for films. Like you have to. Minute 2, what happens? Minute 5, page 15.
Yeah.
What's the midpoint?
You should read one of my scripts because they are paced. It's crazy. They just move. We gotta move or I get bored.
Yeah. And are they like 90 minutes long?
The longest one I wrote was Demi. Demi Drew Myers is 120, 111 to 120, somewhere in there.
Okay.
But Dragons is exactly 90. And then Salutatorian, I think, is like 95. And then the one I'm doing right now is 86. We're trying to get to 90.
Yeah.
There's like the second half of the second act is killing me. It's awful. I'm having such a hard time. The pacing's crazy.
That sounds like a good problem to have, though.
It is. It is a good problem. I don't know if you write a lot or if the things I'm going to say sound stupid or if the thing I'm going to say sounds stupid to you. But they weren't talking like... I feel like they talk in my brain, like they jibber jabber, and I have to hear them.
That makes a lot of sense.
They weren't talking, and I was like, what are you doing? So at work, I'm a supervisor at a miscellaneous coffee shop, and I will put myself on dishes, and I will do dishes and just like Subway Surfers my brain, like I'm doing a thing while I'm thinking, and then I'll be like, and then I go and grab my phone and like write down what's going to happen. But I have to just like sit and like listen to them. And what they want. To
the characters in the scene.
Yeah.
And see.
Or I work a lot through. So if I get stuck, a lot of times what I do is I go back to page 1 and I read through the whole thing and I make sure the pacing is correct. Like because if I get bored, my screenwriting, the one semester I was in school, my film school, my screenwriting professor told me that a script is still a movie and your eyes need to move down the page. And if they're not moving down the page, then you're not doing it right. So if my eyes get stuck somewhere, then I'm like, I gotta fix that. Or if I get bored, or if it's not funny, or if a lot of times they do jibber jabber, and that means they take too long, and then I'm like, I could cut from this line to this. Like, I don't need any of that. But Emily, who's with me watching, has seen me write. Like, I'm in the same room with her, or she's written with me now, because we wrote Technicolor together, and I go, like, they just go back and forth. There's, like, a rhythm. There's, like... I would say it's pretty musical, like the way that dialogue works. Like I'm really good at dialogue. That's slight flex, total flex. I'm like really good at it, and most people are not very good. But that's because they're chatting. So you just have to like let them chat, and then you can figure it out. But they weren't chatting, and that's what I realized was like, especially because I think the second act, like after the midpoint, I guess the second half of the second act, you're figuring out like the stakes are raising, but I didn't know what their stakes were. And so that was like I had the ending written, but I was like, why does it even like matter? And like, why are they like this? And then I figured out this boy's trauma, and it changed the game for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe one of those things, like if you have the ending written and that's pretty solid, you could move it up in the page, in the length, and then you would have to come up with a new ending so that it gets better somehow.
See,
do you feel like that would be too much of a change? Because that's the ending that you...
Because the beginning shot and the end shot are like siblings.
You know, that's...
So like if you...
That's a real good argument. Yeah. I'll backtrack.
No, they're like... Because a character... I'm a Joseph Campbell person also, so I'm a huge story circle. Like, The Hero of a Thousand Faces changed my life. Like, that book, even just as like... As for my soul, like not even as a writer, but like feeling like you don't have a place in the world, like everybody lives the same stories as you, but just like, but it's yours, and it's very strange. But the idea that like your main character at the end of the movie is in the same place as they were before, but they have changed. Yeah. And so like they're just not going to get into the same problem as they would in the beginning. Like that's the major difference. So whether or not that's a location that they're in the same spot, or if they're just like, I don't know, it's just different. Most of the time for me, it's a location thing, but they've changed as like people. I think, except for Dragons, because it's a road trip. They start in one place and they end in the other. Yeah. But the other ones.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a superpower.
Yeah.
Because I could not write. I mean,
You could do anything you want to do.
Yeah, but I don't want to write.
You
So it feels like I think I'm a photographer by trade. I think in composition, colors, light. I think like that.
Yeah.
And not a DP by any stretch of the other word. I mean, I like still photography.
Yeah.
And I love film because of the editing and the many. But I really like to recommend you some films that are not that have nothing to do with the pacing, nothing to do. I saw like Russian movies, French movies that are just that you would hate maybe or love.
I really liked the one that everybody has to watch, The 400 Blows.
Oh yeah,
but I only liked that the second time. The first time I said this is dumb, and then I had to watch it again for a different film class, and I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, I only watched it the first time, and I want to watch it again. But
It's really
in like
good.
whenever they show it in like
You
a
should
big
watch
theater.
it again and tell me what you think. Why she's wearing a hat at the end of the movie?
Okay, I'll do that.
That's like my
I'll watch
major
it
thing
again.
about that movie. I'm like, why is she wearing a hat? Because they tilt up. It's not even like she's wearing like. The girl, because it's a POV of the boy watching his mom, and they're talking, and then they tilt up to the hat and they go down. So I think it's a gift from her boyfriend, but I do think it's a very strange, like little. It's such a choice, and I think that's the other thing. The tilt, yeah,
Okay.
it's such a choice, and a production design choice, like the way the hat looks, and that's because I come from an art background, but like it's such a weird hat, like it's not even like a very. I wouldn't be like, oh, that's an expensive hat. It's just a hat. And I'm like, why is she wearing a hat?
That's a very interesting take. Yeah. That's why I want to recommend you films, because I feel like you would come up with these takes that I haven't seen before because we didn't go to the same film school.
Right.
We went through, I know Joseph Campbell. I know like the screenplay, the book.
Save the Cat.
Yes.
I love Save the Cat.
I mean, I know those, but we weren't taught to follow those. We were actually taught to ignore those. So I feel like we went to very different film schools. Even though we love film the same, I feel like we should share films more often.
Save the Cat was my mom. That was not a school thing. That is that my mother is like so pro Save the Cat. Like I would come downstairs and there's a chalkboard in my kitchen and like that would be covered with cue cards. Or like we'd come home and my mom would be like, can you help me with this log line? And then we would like pitch log lines to each other. Like it was really,
that's helpful.
Because it is helpful. But because just the way that my family, before my mom worked in film, we loved movies. I mean, like movies to me are like, they are family. Like I have bad days and I'm like, and especially because Emily and I, what we do is we watch like movies together over FaceTime. And so I was like, we have to watch Arrival. Like that is like my number one comfort movie. That and Kung Fu Panda 2, which are very opposite.
Arrival?
Okay. I love.
Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah. No, it's
pretty good one.
I think that's how God sees time. And so for me, it's very comforting because I think being stuck in a linear view, it's exhausting. Like I just have to think about tomorrow all the time. But if I had the whole picture, all the things I would do.
Yeah. You see, this is why we should talk more about film, because I didn't think about how God would see time.
Yeah.
Because
he's beyond time.
Yeah.
That's how they say. He lives like outside of time. And we're like stuck in this stupid linear perception.
Yeah, that's the main theory on that time is not fundamental to the universe. It's just an emergent property. So whatever happened at the beginning, time just happened to be so. And in the three dimensions, like chaos just grows, and that's why time cannot be stopped, because the particles are just going their own separate way. If they could stop for a second, time would stop. They can't, so time doesn't stop. But God outside of time.
Yeah.
I'll watch Arrival and the 400 Blows.
And the 400 Blows.
Homework. Perfect.
Yeah.
You can come back for another episode.
We'll talk about
That'd be great.
it. That'd be good.
Totally. So you want to do that for screenplay, film. You can sing, so that's the Grammy. I'm trying to build the pieces to the EGOT.
I can sing. It's true.
Do you have an agent? Can we get you an agent?
No, I don't have an agent.
Let's get you an agent.
Okay, sounds good. I don't even I kind of know the process. My mom just got an agent, but I feel like.
Would you like that agent to represent you as well?
I don't know.
Would that be a good move?
Well, my mom is really in the faith-based world, and I would argue that's not necessarily my branding.
Okay.
I think that there's just a lot of context within that community that I don't necessarily want attached to my persona. Does that make sense? Like, I have a very personal relationship with God, but I think that there's just a lot of choices that community is making that I don't need, like...
you have a different artistic voice.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Exactly. I was talking about with Emily because I am a firm believer of, like, it says in the Bible that when you speak when you speak the Bible word by word, like, that is, like, you will be rewarded. Like, there's a very strong transaction between that.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about that with writing and, like, how to be Christians but also write content. Like, if you read Dragons, the script I wrote, it's like the raunchiest thing ever. But, like, I don't even think that's true, actually. I just think that they have conversations. So they talk about, like, diva cups and having sex with their boyfriends and just, like, the things you talk about when you're 18 and figuring life out. I'm very proud of that script. It's a really good script. When Technicolor blows up, that's our pivot, is to make Dragons, because it's gonna be really fun. It's gonna be a great time. But that's
a feature.
That's a feature. Yes,
perfect.
It's about three friends who grew up together, and they're about to go to college, and they find this old book that they made when they were kids, and they would go, like, fairy hunting and dragon hunting and all these things, and they made this road trip that they were going to do.
And that's why it's called Dragons.
And it's how to guide to finding dragons. And so they're going to go on this road trip to the Grand Canyon and find dragons in the Grand Canyon. But then as they travel, they actually start finding things, and then it's kind of this, like, it's a very surreal... You never, like, see anything.
Do you see it as a live action animation or live action?
That's so interesting. I do see it as live action because, so one of the characters, her whole thing is she wanted to go to film school and she didn't get in. So it's cutting between footage. Like, when she was a little girl, they would go hunt dragons and she had, like, a little camcorder. So she's, like, they're cut between footage of them as little kids and they parallel it with, like, the actual journey that they're going on. And then as they're getting older, it starts paralleling with, like, older footage that they made when they were I guess, like, TikToks and stuff that they made when they were, like, in high school, or, like, the short films that they would make as kids. So I was at one point we were talking about rewriting it because we did a table read with some friends last summer, and we talked about it being one of the recommendations was, because it's a book, that she's an art major, and then we would do, like, animated sequences instead of the film ones. We looked at it for a while, but there's just some of the shots and the plants are just really cute, and I really and we both, Emily and I, looked at it and we were like, we really want to just do it that way, you know? I think that's interesting because I do think the animation is, like, the correct choice. Like, it like tightens the movie, but I don't want to do it.
And what do you think about these new types of VFX where you have Ryan Reynolds and then a CG character all living? It's live action but animation. It's all living in the same space.
I think that's great.
Would you do dragons that way? Would you have, like, live action people and then, like, a cartoon or like a cartoon findings of fairies and all that?
No, it's really hard to explain. The first thing they find is trolls, and that's just sound.
Okay.
Like, so it's just like they go underneath this troll bridge, and then there's, like, all these rocks lined, like, it's gonna be this really integral, like, mural, but, like, with rocks, and then it's gonna cut to the found footage of them as kids making it, and then we're like, did you make that? And then we're like, no. Then they drive to the motel, and then there's, like, moss on their car, and it's, like, glowing and stuff. Then there's like, I think
little hints.
The only thing I think you really see, because you don't even see the dragons at the end. It's so fun because it's like, it's a PO, like, they're, like, looking at the Grand Canyon, and then they look up, and it's like Birdman, you know, the end of Birdman.
Yeah.
And so it's like that, but then it's gonna be, like, rainbow all over their face, and like they made it to the dragons.
Wow.
Yeah, but there's this sinkhole Sam, which is a real thing in Kansas. It's like this giant worm they think lives in this sinkhole. So they're going to go visit the worm, and two of them are going to, like, jump in the hole and, like, try to figure it out. One of my favorite lines I've ever written was, if there's a worm fucking around in Kansas, I'm going to figure out what it is. And it's, like, one of my favorite things. So two of them are going to go. That's a pretty good line. One of them is scared, and then she's going to, like, hear it and then turn on her iPhone flashlight, and then it's just going to be, like, this giant scale thing that's coming across, and then she'll, like, How to Train Your Dragon and touch it, and then so that's, like, the only touching. The fairies This is my favorite scene I've ever written, I think. One of
Let's
like top 3.
Yes.
Okay. The main character is queer. She's a gay woman, struggling with like coming out to her friends and her family and all those things. That's Alex. Then there's what are their names? There's Maisie Joe, and Maisie Joe is like, have you seen Sex and the City?
No.
Okay, she's like Charlotte in Sex and the City, but she's just like very, like, she wants to get married, have kids, and like she's very in love with her boyfriend and very chill. Not chill, she's like uptight, but like has like pink everything and like very uniform and very type A. And then there's Elle, and Elle is like the very overwhelming, she's a lot like me, overwhelming and very spunky and like, we're gonna do this thing. So they go to this like, it's in Sydney, Nebraska, because that's a real place I went to, and it's like this dirt road and it's crazy. On the way to try to find this hotel, my dad and I took a wrong turn, and you're like actually on a dirt road, and it's a cornfield. So the fairies are in the cornfield, but you have to walk in one at a time. And 2 of them are like, this is the dumbest thing. Like, why would we ever do that? And then Elle is going to go in first because she always does. And then she's going to like, you're going to not be able to hear her anymore. And then Maisie Joe like sticks her hand in and then gets yanked into the cornfield.
Oh, wow.
And then Alex, the main character, chases after her. So then they're in the cornfield. You're hearing like them talk, the 2 people, but she's not with them. And then Maisie Joe's comes out, but she's wearing like this long white sundress and like flowers. So it's not like really, it's like a fairy being Maisie Joe. And she's gonna be like, come on, let's like go hang out. And then they're gonna go like, they're gonna find a hay bale and they're gonna whatever. And they're gonna like lean on each other and be like, see, I told you. And it's a reference to an early conversation, but like, I told you love's supposed to be easy. And then a cell phone goes off and the whole thing cuts, and then she's alone on top of the hay bale. And then you hear them talking again, and Maisie Joe is like, I gotta take this, it's my boyfriend. And Elle is like, you dumb bitch, like why are you leaving? Like, we're trying to find the fairies. And then Alex is chasing after that conversation, and then Elle comes out wearing the long dress and the flowers and everything, and is like, I don't know why she would leave. And she's like, and Alex is like, I'm so sorry. And she's like, it's okay, we get to be alone now. And then like hold hands. And she's like, I won't tell anybody. And then they almost kiss. And then Elle, the real Elle, is going to be like, hey, what are you doing? And they'll like turn around, and then it'll be the real Elle. And then she's like, and that Elle is like destroyed. Like her whole outfit is like in tatters. And so whatever she saw in the cornfield, like, because it's supposed to reveal your deepest desires. So Alex's is to be out with her friends and to like have romantic relationships. Elle's is like battling with this desire. I don't want to spoil, but it's because of this thing at the end. And then, so she's like, this is dumb, and then leaves. And then the phone call is that Maisie Joe's boyfriend broke up with her. And so even that's like her deepest desire, even if she doesn't know it. So that's a very weird scene, but that's like my favorite. Like that scene was so fun to write, and it's the midpoint of the whole thing too. So it's like,
that's a good midpoint as well.
It's a great midpoint, right?
So I don't want to like, yeah, I'm trying to understand it better. The fairies are just taking on the body of the people that come in. Mm-hmm. So they're more like, that's really impressive. That's really good.
So the whole point, originally when I wrote this script, it was for Emily, Rose, and I to film just the 3 of us, and we were all going to go road trip, and we were going to film. So it was very minimal VFX, because we were just going to do it. Now we think we might actually cast people and like do it, because it's a really good script, and like give it justice. And it came from the fact that I saw Good Will Hunting, and I was like, this won an Oscar for best writing? All the best parts are improv by Casey Affleck. All of them. All their best scenes are improv. And it won best script. And it's just boys being sad. And I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, I can write about girls being sad. Way more interesting. And I had been wanting to write this script for a long time, but I didn't really have people. And then I met these 2 amazing people, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have people now. So the first script, they were named Izzy, Maggie, Rose, and Emily, like the whole time. And then when we started shopping it, we're like, we probably have to change the names. Also, it just got a little too real. Like, I didn't even know us that well, and it's insane. Like, I really like shredded us as people in the script. Like, to me, it's like all of my soul and like all of my conversations I've been wanting to have just about being a woman. But I hit some things that are like crazy nerves. So
crazy nerves.
Yeah. There's like one line. No, I'm not going to get into that. There's just some
that
things.
would spoil the film, or you
no,
just don't want to get into the
like,
topic?
they're not here. If they were here to talk about it, then I'd be more willing, but I don't want to speak for them.
I'll get more microphones.
Yeah, you should. It's more like I would write things
that.
and they would be like, how did you know that? Like, I didn't know, I never told you that. And I was like, but I think I'm a really intuitive person and very empathetic, and that is what makes me a good writer. All my characters are like super detailed.
Do you feel that empathy comes from your family? Was that taught to you?
Yes. Mm-hmm. For sure. I think every person that came into our lives, like the mentally ill or the drug addict or all they were all people for me. They weren't like these weird personas. And everybody's so complicated. Everybody's so complicated.
I don't want to go over that. So maybe we should probably explain a little bit of the background to the listeners.
Oh yeah.
That in your house we had
this spare bedroom, and my dad's a recovered alcoholic, and so we would just have people recovering from certain ailments, I guess, would like come and stay and then leave. So a lot of it was alcoholism. I do think some of it was drugs. I know some of it was drugs. Some of it was sex. Like there was some interesting parts that were all happening. And I just so I grew up with very interesting people around all the time. And even like my church was really unconventional.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of like, we did a lot of like Christmases in trailer parks and stuff like that. So I was just with different communities, I would argue, and then it gives you this bigger sense.
Yeah. And now that you say it, I don't think I've seen that on the screen. Christmas, trailer parks, Christmas.
Well,
is there a portrayal, a fair portrayal of that?
I don't know. Maybe.
We'd
have to do it. I don't have like the most fond memories of that specific part.
No, I mean, it is what you've told me is really, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds tough.
It was super tough. The trailer park thing there was specifically one family, before they moved in with us, we renovated a whole trailer for them, and then they burned it down doing a meth lab, like on Christmas. And so like they had, like before they were living, and then they didn't have anywhere to live, and then they lived with us.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't want to capitalize on your idea, but that sounds see that as
a movie, right? Yeah.
Or even like a picture. The trailer park burning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very.
Would you, or have you written about your experiences from the guests, or do you have like characters, chapters, or do you not feel like you can own their stories that way? How do you approach that?
I wrote about them when I was trying to get into college. Like that was my entrance letter thing, but I think it's a little too complicated to fit into like a this is why I want to go to film school. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
Which is a bummer because actually it was a really good paper. But I think that
But it could totally fit in a 800-page novel.
Yeah. No, I've thought about writing about each of them. I was just so young when it started, and then I was 16 when it ended. And it's also a very anticlimactic ending. Like we had 2 long-term people, and we reached this point where like my brother was graduating and they were just like, we're tired and we can't do it, and like you are better now. Like they just hadn't left. And they both like cut us off. One of them, like we had like a final dinner, but like one day, like my parents asked us and then we're like, how do you feel? And we were all like, we're really tired. It was right after that guy stole my mom's car, and we were like done. My brother was like he was going to community college. He was living in like a closet upstairs basically because the big room was being used for all these guests. And my mom's like office was being used for guests, like parts of the house. And it's not that big of a house. So yeah, and there were times where like my sister and I would share a room to like fit people in our house. Yeah, it was really intense. I think I was too close to it for a really long time. I never really have, like, I do think some of my other siblings probably have anger. I don't have as much anger about the situation. Like, I do think my parents thought they were doing the right thing and, like, are objectively doing, like, good things.
Yeah,
I can
totally.
never be mad about doing good things. I think it was just so, and it was so normal. Like, you forget, and then you'd go to other friends' house. And you would be like, oh, there's like not people here. And like I can go downstairs and like not wear a bra. Like things that you don't think about.
No,
in the
it
same way.
sounds like it was normal to you, but it's also intrusive, super intrusive to your life, to your family, to your house. I mean, they're with you.
Yeah, all the time. So I know I have not thought of. I have written a little bit. I don't quite know how it would all go. I think that whole section of my life between the roommates and church, because the church closed a couple years ago, but like that was a really big part of my life, and the nonprofit work and all, and traveling for the nonprofit work, like all of that was like my identity. And I think I really did have to figure out who I was outside of serving. And I was so, I mean, you're just so young, and it's hard when it's the right thing to do. And I do think that is one of the things about Christian culture that's so interesting, is that like objectively we were doing good work, and it was just so harmful, like on the body and on the soul. Intrusive is a great word. Like it was so intrusive, but you don't even like process it, and you just give it all, you know, because that's what Jesus would do. But I'm not Jesus, you know. I was 8. This is like a very interesting, and the consent piece, I've thought a lot about that as I've gotten older, which was like we were a little too young to be consenting of
that happening in your house.
Yeah, you know, like it was like once.
Have you had that talk with your parents?
I think towards the end we have, and I've talked. I mean, I would say I'm pretty cooked. Like I've done a lot of my work, and I went to therapy, and I figured a lot of stuff out. I'm not perfect, but like I do think my parents know how I feel about the situation. And I genuinely, I like don't hold any resentment. Like I'm like so. It's such an objective thing. Like it just was my life, and then now it's not anymore. And so it's more like.
And also you learned, I feel like you learned so much of it. Oh my gosh, so you cannot,
yeah. It's why I'm 35 in my soul. Like it's very interesting. I talk to people, and like I really struggle with making friends my age, and it's because I've like been through war, you know? Like it's just not, I don't go to frat parties. Like it's not even fun, especially when like meth labs were burning, you know? It just doesn't hit the same way, I guess.
It makes perfect sense.
Total sense, right? So making friends is very interesting because upbringings are so, I really do censor like that part of my life, which is so interesting because it was such a big part of my life. But I don't talk about it all the time. There are things, I have like bits, as you've probably noticed, that I bring up in conversation, and like that's not one of them. I'm a pretty authentic and open person, and if you ask questions, like I'm so willing to be vulnerable about the stuff I've figured out. Not the other stuff, but like
not the stuff you haven't.
Not the stuff I haven't figured out. We'll figure it out later. But like I'm like super open. But I think there's this weird. It's so weird and it's so uncommon.
Yeah.
And it's hard. People get wigged out.
I feel like I am also pretty open. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this thing if I wasn't. Mm-hmm. But then something changed lately.
Yeah.
Being here in the States, you get to know many different people in positions of power that you wouldn't normally if you not in the States, but LA specifically, like Hollywood.
Real.
So I feel like I'm censoring myself again because I was so open about my life. I was like, oh yeah, I had this trauma. I went to therapy, and I would talk about just personal things.
Right.
But now that I'm talking, I would do that in Spanish. But now that I'm talking in English, and like the head of whatever studio can listen in and know more about me and manipulate me and think about like, I want to think that I am an open book. Mm-hmm. But am I? I mean, being here opened my mind to what other people, how they perceive me. And I mean, I've been onto that since the beginning, but now these people have like studios and TV shows, and they're big time journalists. So do you feel pressure in that way? Like people getting to know you, manipulating you, or do you feel like you're an open book? They cannot get to you? In that sense, I feel like I need myself to empower myself more, to know that if I say something that's true about me, that no one can hurt me with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, it totally makes sense. I think it's a very LA thing. I think if you went somewhere else, you might feel differently in the States.
Yeah, I would agree.
California is crazy.
It is insane.
It's not like my favorite place. I've been to 48 states, and this is like a bottom
mainland
40.
US.
Yeah, mainland US. And I find, it's exhausting. I really, especially, so like I do have a faith, and I've said that like I don't participate in the community necessarily. But like even that sentence is like covering tracks. You know what I mean? Like it's like, I'm a Christian, but like, because you don't know, like you really don't know.
You really don't know.
Even yesterday when I was in this line, this girl, I was talking about my mom working in faith-based, and she was like, she invited me to dinner, and she was like, I just don't know many people who are open about that part of their life here. Like, because it's very countercultural. And like, so
that might be why. I mean, because if a head of a studio hears that you're on this side of the
which it's like right, religion is not political in my opinion. Like that, those are different people use the religion politically, but I think in its core it shouldn't be. And so the fact that like I can say this fact about my life and people automatically assume things happened back home a lot, but more about like liberal things. Like if I said the word feminist back home, people would like freak out. Like it was just not okay.
Okay.
I'm very liberal for Wisconsin, and I'm not liberal for California. Like there's just different worlds, I would argue.
Yeah. I thought I knew who I was, and then I came here. And then I can't figure it out, because if I say something as a joke, people don't take it as a joke. Or if I say something seriously, people take it as a joke. Because I feel like they're very not politicized, but radicalized.
Yes.
You are either on the extreme of the left or the extreme of the right.
Yes.
There's no nuance. There's no nuance.
Yeah.
And then you have wars, which are two-sided.
Yeah.
And then you have elections, which are two-sided. So there's no arguing against being radicalized. You have to be living in this. Well, you don't have to be, but you.
It's hard not to.
It's hard not to when you're living here.
Yeah. I don't recommend LA. Like, if you don't need to be here.
If you don't need to be here.
I wouldn't go.
Just
personally.
visit.
Yeah.
We can give you a great tour.
That's true. I genuinely, like, I think a lot of it is Los Angeles. I think I worked a long time on being this, like, cookie cutter version of myself. I was basically Sandy from Grease. Like, I was just the nicest, like, sweetest thing. But it wasn't me, and it's exhausting. And then once it actually was crazy, because the less that I was pretending to be that person, the more people wanted to be me. Like, and the confidence that I have now is like so manufactured, which is how it all works, right? You just like pretend until you
fake it till you make it.
No, it's so real. It's the most, and actually, because I'll talk about Emily, but Emily met me like post confidence. So I was like, And then she also like was figuring out her confidence place, and then it's like a different, like you can't go back. Once you start just like treating yourself well, which I do think is where it starts, is that in Los Angeles you always have to, there's another way to be better, there's another way to be hotter, there's another way to be smarter, there's another way to be like the best at your thing. You're never good enough. And so I think you start feeling bad, and then you get anxious, and then you feel like you can't really talk about things. And like, so now that I've like, even at this open call yesterday, I was just like chilling, like it wasn't a big deal for me, and people were freaking out, and it was because like I think they didn't feel good, even though they were super talented individuals with like giant resumes and all these things, and like, but they don't have, it's not an affirming place, and you're never good enough because you're not getting these jobs, and you're not.
I feel like it's the opposite of affirming.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it tears you down. I had a friend who, we've talked a lot about it, and like, you go here if you're lost, and like you leave when you're found. Like genuinely,
wow.
You're not, people who stay here long term, I do, not to judge, because like if I can get a nice place on the west side,
that is
like
true.
I'm gonna stay in the west side.
Whenever you get a mansion on the hills,
no, then you're good.
You're good.
But like I do think there is, if you don't have to be here, most people don't want to be here. You know what I mean?
That's also true.
And so it's just like this really uncomfortable place of like anxiety. The anxiety here is crazy. And I just don't have the energy for it anymore. I don't really have the energy for insecurity anymore, and that is pretty mean. Like, I'm trying to get better at holding space. But when people, I think, this is my hottest take, I think being insecure is the most selfish thing you can do.
Tell me more about that.
Because when you're insecure, it means that you don't have affirmations from yourself, right? So you have to get them from other people. Oh. So it's when you go to people and you're like, oh my gosh,
I'm gonna write this down.
I'm so ugly. I'm so ugly. Like, aren't I just so ugly? I'm so ugly. And then you sit there and you're like, no, you're not. And then like, but I am. And they're like you need to feed them.
Yeah.
And I don't do that anymore. Like, you need to, like, like, even if you're like, I don't think anyone's ugly, but when you're consistently like, I'm the stupidest, like, I'm so stupid, aren't I stupid? And it's like, especially with like, I would argue a lot of women are just like that scene in Mean Girls where they're like, oh my gosh, my ass is so fat. Like, that is so real, especially in LA. It's like, no, it's not true, but I'm not going to sit here and affirm you. And because I'm a pretty confident person, it happens, people really want that for me, or people are like yanking me down all the time. Those are like the two major things. And like, consistently, it will happen, like, not gonna say that. It happens a lot in my life, and it's insane. No, I can't name any example without calling people out, which is not worth it. But I do think there's just been a lot about, because I'm a joyful person, because I'm pretty confident, people will make comments that like, I'm droning, or I have like raw talent, or like just little things that are very like to yank down and to even the playing field, because they can't just like exist and be confident.
Right.
So I don't really mess around. Like,
and I think you not throwing people under the bus speaks highly of your character. So I'm happy for you that you didn't.
Thank you. Well, it's not worth it.
But I got the reference. No.
No,
I know what you're... No.
No, exactly. No, it's so not worth it. We kid. Yeah. No, it's just really interesting. The more that you look for it, and the more you'll see it. Like, you're just like, oh, you are, like, so insecure. And not in, like, even as I say it, like, I'm not trying to... But, like, most of the time, they try to bring you down to make themselves look better. And that's just really selfish.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about insecurity being the most selfish thing, like, you can be.
It's so selfish.
Yeah.
So I don't really, like, I don't hang out with insecure people. And I'm sorry, because, like, a lot of times those are the people that want to hang out with you. And they're people who do reach out and they do want to connect with you as your friend. And then it's really hard. My dad always said, light attracts light, but light attracts flies. And, like, you have to pick out which one's which. And that's hard, especially in dating. Because, like, I'm like, are you a fly? And they usually are. Because who wouldn't want to date me? But then there's also this level of, like, I'm too intimidating, so like I'm like, why wouldn't this person want to date me? And it's because like people don't want to date people better than them, in my opinion.
Oh well, I do.
You do?
Fuck yeah. I want to be the dumb person in my family.
Really?
Yes.
That's
and I'm
crazy.
not. I'm pretty.
You're super smart.
I'm a nerd. I like to read.
Yeah.
About.
That's crazy.
Tech,
you
science.
You want to be the dumb person in your family?
Hell yeah.
Your family's gonna be so smart.
Well, hopefully, if I build it right. Because I mean, what's the point if you're not? Because then who do you learn from?
Right. Yeah. I want like a peer for sure. I want someone to like challenge me and ask me questions.
You know, power couple. That term.
Yeah.
Is scary but attractive.
It's so attractive. My friends.
It is.
I've had a lot of my friends tell me that they believe that I'm going to be single until I'm married, because I'm just so like, if it's not next,
that is the way.
Ariana Grande said. So you just
God
wait.
Bless.
Yeah, literally. Because it's such a bummer. And then you give chances and then they're not worth it. And it's like, this is exhausting. And going back to previous statement, I just have such a bleeding heart that I will get attached so quickly. And like, I just can't do that.
Good callback.
Yeah.
I feel like I do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to put myself out there, but I mean, intense is something I've been called.
Yeah.
Many a time.
Really?
Because, well, I feel. I mean.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel. I was going to say more, but no. Nothing else to say about that. I mean, we have such a short time here. I mean, I don't want to get existential, but that's mainly why I made this podcast, to get existential.
Yeah.
We don't have, I mean, maybe I have 60 summers more in my life. Why wouldn't I fucking go hard on them bitches? Why would I go fucking ham on every summer? I mean, summer's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I used to hate the heat. I used to be
hate the heat,
I'm team cold. I like jackets. Fuck no. Get me on the beach half naked. Fucking on the I said half.
Crazy.
I said half. On the sand. Get me, those intense summers. And when it rains, it just smells better. Everything looks better. Everything's greener.
Yeah.
And
back home, it's so green in the summer.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And then winter. Oh, that's tough. I would not deal well with a northern winter.
That's the real thing. I've talked a lot with my family because I don't know if they're going to stay in Wisconsin. Like, we're all kind of, my sister's about to graduate. She's looking at southern schools and, like, who knows at this point. But I feel like snow days as a child is such a rite of passage. So I feel like I have to, if I'm going to raise children, which I want to, goal in life, have kids, I feel like they need to have snow.
Yeah, but then the snow days are just Zoom days. You can just Zoom into class.
See, if that's true, that's rigged. I don't think you understand how amazing it was to, like, get up in the morning at, like, 6 a.m. and then you would go downstairs at the TV and then the Weather Channel, and then it would have, like, all of them, and then my hometown starts with a C, so we'd, like, wait for the C's to, like, scroll by, and then it would say, like, either 2-hour delay, or it would start as a 2-hour delay, and then you would go back to bed, but then you wake up, and then it was a snow day. Oh, that was the best.
It sounds like the best. I mean, I didn't have snow days, but I've seen
it's so fun.
People so passionately talk about that.
No, snow days are so great, and I feel like as a kid,
yeah,
I just would want that for, like, my children. Even though I hate the snow, maybe I just wouldn't be like.
You hate the snow.
I hate cold. I hate that cold. I actually just don't like weather. I'm a room temperature person. Like, we gotta stay in the 60s. Like, even this room's a little warm. I don't like. I don't like to notice the temperature. I don't. I like 50s, 60s with, like, a breeze where I can, like, have layers. I look better in layers. I think outfits are more interesting in layers.
That is true.
So I just don't. I don't know.
Are you a big fashion person in that way?
Am I a big fashion person? I don't have enough finances to be a big fashion person. And my body is a very interesting proportion that's really hard to shop for. So when I am more wealthy or more well off, I think I will be a better fashion person. But right now it's just not economically a part of my life. I do put in effort, but, like, not.
Yeah,
much.
You can style.
Yeah, I can style. I'm wearing sweats and 2 different blacks, but, like, yeah, I can style for sure.
I thought they were blue and gray, but yeah, I guess they're 2 different blacks. No, this is
black. I could have worn my blue one, and then I have my black tank, which is a 3rd black, so 3 blacks. So.
Then again, I'll refrain from joking about
that one for sure.
The 3 blacks in your life.
The 3 blacks in my life.
We started talking about clothes. We should finish this. Which I feel like this was.
I don't have a lot to talk about with fashion. I grew up also with lots of hand-me-downs, and I grew up with lots of, like, there was a season in my life where we just couldn't really afford that many clothes. I did grow up, like, a little lower class, so, like,
and clothes are expensive.
Clothes are expensive.
I mean, LA is a pretty good spot if you're like clothes. They have really good brands.
No,
they have it, but it is expensive.
It's expensive.
I have to go to thrifting, baby.
Thrifting, baby.
That's it.
Yeah. No, I definitely don't like. It's not my. I also don't like shopping.
By the way, who said that? Thrifting,
Rachel
baby?
Schumacher. Love you, babe.
I think about that phrase. I don't know who you are, Rachel, but I think about that phrase.
Rachel Schumacher said it to Emily Grimes, and I'm just here.
Oh, wow.
So I just also quote it. So
quote,
we
unquote.
love you, Rachel.
Yes, we do. That's a good phrase. I honestly think about that phrase almost once a week.
Thrifting, baby.
Thrifting, baby. All right. Well, is there something that you wanted to talk about, like a question that you have, or would you be?
No, I had no idea.
No idea.
No, I didn't even think of anything. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for this interview. So
yay!
And since I'm not doing any editing, I'll just upload it as is.
That's crazy. That's so exciting. When is it going to be out in the world?
I actually don't know. Today is Tuesday. So sometime soon.
Okay, slay.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
I didn't bring my computer, so it's not going to be out tomorrow. But
oh my gosh, yeah. No, you're so fine.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I didn't even know. This is such a pleasure. I feel so honored. I feel so honored to be the premiere. I feel like this was so crazy, like the trajectory of the storyline. I hope people find it interesting.
I know they will.
Oh, yeah? That's good. Future EGOT winner.
Future EGOT winner.
Recovered Midwestern. I actually, with my album title, that was one of the thoughts that Emily and I, when I talked to Emily about it, because it's a line in one of my songs. But Chapel Rowan's album is like the rise and fall of a Midwestern whatever. And so it's
recovering.
It's too close.
I mean, recovering Midwestern is like a thing of its own. It's not close to. Yeah.
No, exactly. So it's not I haven't named it yet. We'll figure it out.
You'll figure it.
We'll
Yeah,
figure it out. It'll be fine.
totally.
Totally.
Well, yeah. So how do people? I'll put it in the.
How do people find me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good question. I'm mainly on
No, it's not.
Instagram at what?
Stop. it.
I had to think about it.
Yeah.
At is.cathan. I think that's also my TikTok. Probably it might be izzy.cathan instead. Those are like the only two I use, honestly. And then TikTok, or not TikTok, on both of those there is Technicolor at technicolordreamboat.musical on Instagram, and then at technicolordreamboat on TikTok.
That's the one.
That's the one that we gotta everybody pay
Perfect.
attention to.
Okay. Well, thank you to our
gosh.
only listener, Emily. No.
No, you have your 3 more.
I have my 3 more.
Yeah.
I only have 4.
No, I'm so excited.
Perfect.
I hope you all enjoy.
Yes.
Okay.
No, this is great.
Yay.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
All right. We're gonna stop right. Oh,
Stop. Oh my gosh, fun.